So today we're going to be graphing functions. Has everybody gotten the title written down yet? Does anybody need more time to write the title down? Okay, I'll pause for a second. So we're graphing linear functions today. Graphing linear functions. So let's do a kind of like a little opener here, if you will. So first of all, from our homework, we should be able to answer this question. So let me use my cards here. But if you can't, it's okay. Eric, what is the slope of this linear function?
I don't know.
Breaking my heart. So how do we know it's 2? Huh? Okay, so it's the one next to the x, right? So it's the number next to it. So that's our slope. All right. Unit 1 lesson 3. Yeah. All right. So let's make a table here. So now we're not usually going to use a table, but you can. It will work. So if I plug in 1 for x, let's do that. I'm going to replace the x with 1. What do we get? 2 times 1 plus 1. So when I plug in 1, I get 3, right? What about if I plug in 0?
1.
Yeah. Right? And when you're graphing a straight line, 2 points is enough, right? So I can graph these 2 points. So let's do that. So we have 0, 1. And we also have 1, 3. Right? And now there's other points here too. Like I could have plugged in 0.5 for x, right? And if I plugged in 0.5, then I would probably have a point in here somewhere, right? So there's really an infinite number of points. We just have 2. And so the way we show all the points that could possibly exist, we draw a line, right? So there's that. Now some of you guys might remember this from Algebra 1. What's this? It's our Y-intercept. And what is a Y-intercept? Where it, there you go. So it's the place where your line touches the Y-axis. Where the line touches, sorry my handwriting's so small, the Y-axis. And take a look over, see where it hits the Y-axis? Now the reason for that is because any point along this Y-axis, anywhere, like here, for instance, what's the X value? 0. How about here? What's the X value? Here?
0.
Okay, so when you plug in 0, right, that the Y that it gives you will be the Y-intercept. But when you plug in 0, this part just goes away, right? And all you're left with is this. So that's why that number represents your Y-intercept, because if you plug in 0, that's all that's left. So that's where it touches the Y-axis, because that's where x equals 0. All right, so we're going to graph today. You can always graph like this, plugging in numbers. The problem is that that takes a little too long sometimes. And also, when you're dealing with fractions, plugging in numbers gets to be kind of a pain in the butt, because fractions aren't fun to work with, right? So anytime you're graphing, you can always graph a function like this. So long as you plot enough points and connect them, you'll get the picture of the graph. Any function will do that. But every graph that we do, there's always like a short way to get the answer quickly. And so today we're going to learn how to graph this shortly. And once again, this is review. You've seen this in Algebra 1. So you're not learning anything new today. We're just kind of reviewing. So let's go ahead and we'll begin here. So how to graph a linear function. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is want to be familiar with this equation. Your y equals mx plus b. We want to be aware that this is our y-intercept. And we want to be aware that this number here is our slope. In other words, that's our rise over run. All right, so let's go ahead and do the steps here then on how to graph. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to plot the y-intercept on the y-axis. Now that's a little bit redundant. I could have just said plot the y-intercept because the y-intercept is on the y-axis. So why did I say on the y-axis? Because actually that's one of the biggest mistakes people make is they put the y-intercept on the x-axis sometimes. So you remember it goes on the up and down axis. All right, the next thing that we do is starting from the y-intercept, so starting from that point, we use the slope, which you remember is rise over run, which means up and over. You use the rise over run to find the next point. After that, you connect the dots. Are you guys cool with me putting W with a slash? That means with, right? Yeah. Okay, so connect with a line. If I use a symbol you guys aren't familiar with, just ask me, I'll tell you what it is. So those are the steps we're going to use. So I'll show you those steps as we do an example. All right, steps in front of you there. So let's go ahead and do an example. We're going to start off with the basic one first. I'm going to call it basic. Basic doesn't mean stupid. It means like it's the basic idea. It's got everything in it. It's not weird. It's just a normal problem, okay? And then we're going to throw in some weird ones as we go, some strange things that could come up. All right, so let's say I have y equals 3/4 x minus 1. All right, so we want to graph this. Now you guys got some steps. I'm going to call on you to read out the steps to me. Ready? I'm going to have David. Where's David? Hi, David. Sorry. All right, David. What's the first step say, sir? Good. It says plot the y-intercept on the y-axis. So I'm going to make a graph really quick here. All right, my next question is going to go to Gabby. Gabby, what is the value of the y-intercept? -1. Okay, good. And Raquel, is the y-axis the up and down or the left and right?
Left and right.
Oh, what is it?
Left and right. Wait, no, up and down.
It's the up and down one. All right, so I get a lot of people who will plot the y-intercept on the x-axis, but that's wrong. We want to put it on the up and down one, the y-axis. So it's actually going to go right there at -1. All right, so that's the first step, right? Plot your y-intercept on the y-axis. Step 2, Vanessa. What does step 2 say?
Use the slope to find the next point.
That's right. Now, does it say that the slope is a point? It doesn't say the slope's a point, right? A lot of people try to plot it like it's a point. It's not. What it is driving instructions to get from one point to your next point. Okay, so Henry, what is my slope up here? That's right. It's 3/4. Okay, so my slope is 3/4. So maybe we should label these, huh? Just in case somebody's not sure. So my slope is 3/4. Now, slope is rise over run. So that means that I'm going to go up 3 and right 4. Now, I'm gonna have Vanessa read it again. So, Vanessa, would you read that again? Step 2.
Use the slope to find the next point.
Use the slope to find the next point. Is that all it says?
After the Y-intercept.
Starting from the Y-intercept, right? So you start from here, and you use this as your driving instructions to find the next one. So I'm starting from here. I'm going to go up 3
Up 3.
over 4. So let's do that. Now 3 what?
Point.
3. Yeah, I guess students get confused when they count lines versus spaces. So count the spaces. I think that's better. Yeah, like 1 space,
Oh.
2 space, 3 space. Does that make sense?
Oh, from 0.
No. You start from here. 1, 2, 3, and then now I don't want to put those little bubbles on there, so I'm going to erase those. But so because here's the problem: some people count the lines and they go 1, 2, 3, and that's wrong. It's the spaces of 1, 2, 3. You jump 3 spaces. Does that make sense? All right. So anyway, up 3 and over how far?
4.
And that's where I'm going to put my dot. My dot. Up 3 over 4. And then step 3, I believe, says something to the effect of connect the dots, right? Okay, and let's not forget what we're doing here. We're drawing a line. And why? Well, remember what I told you an equation is like a marriage contract between 2 variables, right? Remember that story I told you? And how many different things can x be? How many? Infinitely many. And for every x value, there's a y value that goes with it. And so how many dots are really in existence here? Infinitely many. And if you drew all the dots, which nobody has time for, but if you drew them all, what would you get? You get a line. So what we do is we just find 2 of them, and then the line means, okay, there's the rest, right? So what a line is, it's an infinite collection of points that represent the relationship between these 2 variables. Okay, so let's do another one real quick. We'll go a little bit faster through example 2, and then I'll let you guys practice one. Ready? Y equals 2/5 x plus 2. Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit quicker through this one now that we've got all the good stuff out of the way. Make a graph. All right, ready? So Natalie, what do I do first? Okay, that wasn't my steps, but we'll do that. So what is this guy? I think that's a good step, Natalie. So I'm going to go ahead and take it. So you get a point for that. Now I'm going to ask Javier, what's the next? What do we need to do now to get this thing going? That's right. So what's my y-intercept, Javier? So it's up 2, right? And then Alexis, what's my well, my slope is 2/5. So I start from my y-intercept, and which way do I go? Bueno? All right. So I'm going to throw one at you guys now. You guys ready? Yes, you are. SP stands for student practice. I want you guys to graph 5 over, no, that's too much like the one I just did. I want to be a little bit different. How about 6 over 5x minus 2. Okay, go. You guys graph that one.
They have more at mine.
It was better on the creative end, I'll say that. So we start at -2, right? And then we go up 6 and right 5 from there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nailed it, looking good. So that's graphing a line. That's what we call the basic idea because there's no weird stuff. So let's start throwing in some weird things that could come along. Here's weird thing number 1. Example 2.
What's the point? Wait, it's 3. 3. You're always mixing up your numbers.
No, wait.
My thinking was that was example 1A and 1B.
Come
But-
on, yeah, you gotta save yourself.
This is 3.
This is example 2.
1.
Whatever you guys want to call it.
It's a part of the same one.
Oh, yeah.
This is example 2. 2.
Okay, so negative 2/3 x plus 1.
This time you gotta go down and left.
Quit taking my thunder, bro. They were all gonna be like, no way, Bailey, you're so cool. Now you ruined it. They think you're cool. All right, he's right. That's the only difference. So let's make a little note of that. So when the slope is negative, we go down and right. Notice I didn't say down and left, right? That's confusing. Notice I didn't say down and right, correct? No, I did say down and right. But
Where do we go? You're confusing me. We go the opposite way.
No, we don't.
So down and left or down
okay,
and right?
let me say it's a lot easier. We're still going to the right, correct?
Wait,
I'm not going left.
It's just
But what did change?
Down.
I went down instead of up. What would happen if you went down and left?
Positive. It's negative. It's positive.
That would be positive because that's like a double negative, right?
Oh, yeah.
So like,
I did it.
so let me ask you this, Henry, before we actually do the problem, let me help you guys out a little bit. So is
Oh, I
this a
see.
positive slope or a negative slope? This is a positive slope, right and up. Gets me to the next point, right? But so does left and down. Why? Because that's a negative and so is that. And double negatives make a positive. So
What a cool infinity sign
when
we
your
have.
slope is negative,
Whoa.
when your slope is negative, you don't go left, okay? You're going to go down and right. Now, for those of you guys that want to be even more confused, not only can you go down and right with a negative slope, but you could also do what? Yes, you could do up and left. But if that's confusing to you, just remember, when there's a slope, it's not up and right, it's down and right. We good?
There's always a slope.
It's what we sold.
What a cool infinity.
I think I hurt some people.
So did I do it wrong?
Here we go. Let's do
Can
it.
you please look at my paper?
No, you're going to look at mine. And then you're going to compare yours to mine.
If I don't have any more.
I'm confusion.
Good. Good. That's a math teacher's job. We try to
Like I
we
started
take
getting it,
the
and then you started saying
blatantly
something.
obvious and we overcomplicate things. That's what we do. All right. So I'm going to ask Danielle, what is the Y-intercept? Now, my slope, Heidi. Since it's negative, I'm going to go what? And right. So I'm going to go down 2 and right 3. So starting from my Y-intercept, correct?
So
So
I was gonna go.
down 2, right 3.
Yep, I did it wrong.
Oh, wait, no, I did it right.
I did it right. Fight me. Stop kidding, though.
Okay, so.
You'll go to jail.
So if you want to do it right, go right.
You could have just done that from the beginning.
Wait!
That's
You
like,
sat there and
that's
said
like a bike
left,
lane.
right.
Do you need
left.
this back?
Yeah.
Just did it back there.
That reminds me of like the bike lane.
We better practice.
I got it now. That makes
That's
the
good
line.
too.
Because you guys got a little confused, I heard. So student practice
What do you
2.
mean?
Here we go.
Can I
Y
draw?
equals 1/5 x plus 1 and y equals negative 1/5 x plus 1. I want you guys to graph both of those.
Can I
You know,
draw?
can we be on the same graph?
Yes,
On the same graph?
I
you can. If you're feeling confused, I would not. If this is like, I got this, I remember this from last year, then you can do what you want. But if you're a little confused, I would put them on separate graphs. Because you want your notes to be helpful to you. And if you have all these lines on one graph, that's not going to help you
I'm
later on.
surprised it's still here. Did you worry the wrong year? Put in the wrong year.
Okay, so go ahead. All right, weird thing number 3. Here we go.
I have no receipt.
Yes, you do.
That's example 3.
You have a whole notebook.
It's example 4. He's right.
Why? You don't have like.
Okay, guys. Missing numbers.
Ah.
Missing numbers.
Well, can you find them?
You guys ready?
No.
So, I'll pause there while you guys copy that. So, let me show you something to explain why this is. You guys ready? 3 plus what equals 3? 0. So, if you're missing a number that's being added, right, then it's 0. So check this out. If you have 2x plus something equals 2x, what's the something?
0.
Okay, that's called the additive identity. So if you're missing a y-intercept, if I say we have y equals 2x, well, what would you add here so it doesn't actually change the equation, but it looks like we have a number there now? It would be 0, right? So when you're missing your y-intercept, it's 0. But a little bit of a different story for slope and y-intercept. So for instance, how about this? 3 over what equals 3? 1, right? So if you guys have this y equals 2x, right? Well, what's really the run that's hiding there? It's 1, right? Or here's another situation for you. How about this?
And hiding is 1 if
3 times what equals 3?
1.
1. So if you have something, we don't know what the front number is, but it just makes x, what would that something be? 1. So if your rise or run or both are missing, then they're 1. But if your y-intercept is missing, it's 0. Why? Because these things are being multiplied and divided. The y-intercept is being added and subtracted. So that's why 1 is 1, 1 is 0. So let's go ahead and practice rewriting some of these a little bit. We're not going to actually graph them. We're just going to rewrite them. So find the missing number. Ready? Here we go. So suppose I gave you guys this. Y equals 3x plus 2. Do I have a y-intercept? Do I have a rise?
Yes.
Do I have a run?
Yes.
I don't have the bottom number, right?
Oh,
So here, I'm going to rewrite it. Because if we're missing a run, what is it? 1. That's what I mean. Now, can you graph this now?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
my voice was so bad.
All right, let's do another one. How about this? Y equals x minus 3. Do I have a y-intercept?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
I do. I'm missing this guy in the front here. I'm missing the rise and run. What are the rise and run when they're missing? 1 over 1. So now can we graph it? Start at -3, up 1 over 1. Now in your homework, I actually want you to graph these, but because we're running a little low on time, I'm just going to practice you guys filling in the blanks, okay? Let's go ahead and do number 3. How about this? What if I said we have y equals 2/3 x? What am I missing here?
You're missing your y.
The y-intercept.
Which equals
And
0.
what did I tell you? Yeah, that's right. When we're missing the y-intercept, it is
Y equals 2/3 x equals 0.
plus 0. So for this one, you would start at 0 on the y-axis. Okay? Let's do one more and then I'm going to throw some at you guys.
I'm done with it.
You should toss them.
Huh?
I don't know why you're eating them.
All right, y equals x.
Y equals 1 over.
What are we missing?
Everything.
Missing everything.
Everything.
So when you're missing everything,
Okay, that's just bad.
what's my rise?
1 over 1.
What's my run?
Roll
0.
1.
Or 1.
They're both 1, right?
That's what I meant.
What's my
That's
y-intercept?
what I meant. 0.
Now we can graph it, right?
That's the
We
one.
start at 0, rise 1, run 1.
That's just one sad problem.
Aren't all problems sad though?
Yeah.
It depends
Like
on
my
the problem it is.
Okay, so let's do a little student practice. Make sure you guys know how to fill in these blanks.
Can I draw?
Can we just like, no.
I like
What we just
drawing.
did?
Yeah, you don't have to, I'm not gonna have you guys graph because of time. I would like to, because you do have to just graph them in your homework. But I just want to make sure you guys know what the missing numbers are. So here we go. Y equals 2x. I want you to find your missing numbers and fill them in. And number 2.
Gotcha.
Okay. Fill in your missing numbers. I'll give you a hint. On number 1, you're missing 2 numbers. And on number some people are, right?
How much?
I serve many people in this class. All right, here we go.
Majority of us already.
What am I on? Example what? Don't
Yes.
listen.
5. Number 4.
Enjoy the
Five.
easy
Wait, no,
days.
five,
okay?
Where did you get 5?
It's 4.
Enjoy the easy days, guys.
Not every problem is one example. One example can have 3 problems. This is 4.
Okay. You have the whole
Jesus
notebook.
Christ.
There you go.
Okay, wait, what?
Write down your example there.
How do you get
Oh. Okay.
I'm upset.
So this is the last weird thing when it comes to graphing. So what I'm about ready to give you is I'm about ready to give you 2 equations which are missing. They're not just missing numbers, they're actually missing letters. Okay?
Wait.
So
investigation.
let me show you. Here's one.
They just went missing.
Suppose I told you where y equals 2. That's a line. Notice that there's no x there.
That's a constant line, right?
You're right. And here's another one.
That's funny. It's okay.
X equals -3. Okay? Okay, so here's how you do these. All right? Up here on your title, you might want to put, these are, right here, these are vertical lines.
Oh.
That means they go up and down. These are horizontal lines. I'll explain why in a minute. But these are horizontal lines, which means when you graph them, they look like this.
Wait, so horizontal, this whole time has gone up and down?
No.
Vertical.
Wait, but the what? But the y-axis is like this, and the x-axis is like this.
You're right, and I'll explain what. Because so I know what Henry's talking about. He's confused, and
My brain hurts.
I understand that. So I'll try to explain
I
it to you.
can't stand this.
All right, so I'm going to restate myself, and then we're going to do the examples. You guys ready? So when you have x equals a number, it's a vertical line. When you have y equals a number, it's a. Okay, so let's take a look at our first one. Y equals 2 is a horizontal. Now let me explain why it's horizontal, because it's weird, because I know what Henry's saying. He's saying, well, Mr. Bailey, the y-axis goes like up and down, right? So why is y equals horizontal? I'll tell you why. Ready? What does this say here? This says y equals what?
2.
Okay, so if I asked you guys to come up here and put a dot at y equals 2, could you?
Yeah.
Where would you put it?
Up
You
to.
have 2. And
Okay.
then you put the
Now
line
here's
down.
the hard question. Even people in pre-calculus have a hard time with answering this question. There's another place on this graph where y equals +2. Can you find it?
Is it?
Come on up.
It's on the.
Some people have a hard time with this.
I found it.
We want to find another dot where y equals 2, +2.
Yeah, I know.
People can't do this. It's so funny.
2? Positive 2?
I'm smart. But I feel like if I put it there, it's gonna be wrong.
Oh,
Nice.
wait.
Then you're not positive.
Is it down here? Cause
No, that's negative.
That's negative. Y equals positive 2. Y equals positive 2.
Let me see. Okay,
Look at his
I've tortured him enough. Right, but stay here. Come over here to the side. Ready? I'm going to show you guys another point where y equals 2. You ready?
Wait, oh, that's.
Hey!
Isn't that I don't know what the x is, but isn't the y 2?
Yeah.
And nobody gets it, so you're not alone. Can you show me another place where y equals 2? Go anywhere, show me. There's an
Press the
infinite
button.
number of answers now. Okay, now let me ask you, when I plot a bunch of points where y equals 2, what kind of line do we get?
Oh, that's
You
why.
get a horizontal line, okay? So, now let's do the next one. Thank you, Henry. You guys give a round of applause. Okay, so now we're going to graph x equals -3. So I'm going to ask Nathaniel to come up here. And can you put a dot on my graph where x equals -3, please?
Sure.
Did you get one?
Yep.
Can you do another one?
Sure.
Wait,
Wait, no.
you have to be on the line,
Thank
dude.
My bad.
I'll make it
Oh,
3. There we
wait.
go.
Hold it.
I agree. There we go. So you guys agree that both these points have an x value of -3?
Yes.
And so if I connect them, what kind of a line do we get?
Horizontal.
Vertical.
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 Wait.
So now, I don't want you guys to go through that terribly painful process every time. So here's what I want you guys to do in the future. Ready? I'm just trying to help you understand it. But here's what I want you guys to do in the future. I want you to see this, and I want you to go, oh, okay, that's a horizontal line, so I'm going to put one here and go straight across. That's all I want you to do. Okay? So I'm going to throw 2 problems at you right now, and that will be just about it for the day. So here we go. Student practice. What are we on now?
4.
Sweet. All right, so here we go. I want you guys to graph x equals 3. I want you guys to graph y equals -5. And then I want you guys to graph a really weird one.
Oh, okay.
Go. All right, guys. You guys graphing masters? All right, so guys, there is what's happening this Wednesday?
What is?
No idea.
A test.
Quiz.
A quiz. We have quizzes on Wednesdays.
Why?
So today I will upload a study guide.
Are
The
you
study
kidding
guide
me, Mr. May?
is optional.
You are my
It's just to
favorite.
help you. You don't have to do it, but it's what your quiz will look like. So you have 2 days to kind of pour through
So
that
is the
study
quiz on
guide
all we did?
last week.
Oh wait, this should be.
Oh, okay. I got it. This is all just.
That's right. All right, we're done.